Hey, everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake, and you're listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. Rock on.
Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts, Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy! Hey folks, this is episode number 123. This week we have Bobby Rock as our guest. That's 1, 2, 3. Ooh, wow. Bill, that's a good observation. Before we get to any of that stuff, though, a few weeks ago we talked about some of the books that Julie and Gil gave us to give away. We have drawn our winners.
Yeah, we did a really weird too. Bill picked numbers, or you picked things, and then I
gave
picked
Bill
numbers.
the names. Bill wrote down random numbers, and then we had you just pick numbers.
Yeah, so it was all random.
So let's hold up number 3 first.
Yeah, number 3.
Okay, who was the winner of number 3?
That would be Todd Moten.
Todd, you have the Gene Simmons Vault supplement. Let me get that off of there.
Woohoo!
Woo, yay,
Awesome.
Todd.
I have that book, and it's signed too.
But you paid for it, moron.
This one
Yes,
is signed. All of these books are signed.
I paid.
Are they signed by the Julian Gill?
The Julian
one
Gill.
and only. Gill.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what? I would pay no money to get that autographed by Julian Gill.
Oh, Julian's going to figure out where you live, Bill.
Yeah.
He will.
All right. Who's the winner of number 2?
Jerry Kugel.
Cougill. I hope he's pronouncing that correct.
I probably butchered it.
Okay, you have won The Danger Zone, a detailed exploration of Kiss's Crazy, Crazy Nights.
Wow, it's a
I would
long.
like to read that book. Can you send that to me first? He'll never know.
That's 284 pages of crazy, crazy information.
Yeah.
Are they crazy nights? Okay.
Yeah.
And
who?
Jeff Rogers, wake up!
Jeff.
You won the big book.
Take his name off there.
Yeah, he won the big heavy book.
Jeff Rogers won the big heavy book.
There
So,
you go.
are you going to be in Nashville? I really don't want to mail this to you. No, I'm kidding.
Actually, if you're going to be in Nashville, that'd be awesome because then we don't have to mail it to you.
So, yeah. But seriously,
it weighs like, what, 6 pounds?
60 or 70,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's medium mail. It's not that expensive.
That's medium mail. You'll get it sometime by September.
You might get them quicker if you did it. He just picked
Go
it
to the
up.
vault. Go to the expo. And
So, yes, congratulations to all three of you. I will get those in the mail by the end of this week.
And
And
thank
a
you to
special
Julian.
thank you to Julian for giving those books to us to give away. That was very kind and generous of you.
I want to read the names of the other people that at least sent their names in.
But
To give
there's like
recognition.
5,000 of them, dude. You
There's
don't
like-
have
I know there are
5,000.
5,000. I'm just going to give the other top 3 people,
All right.
which would be Crash Crafton, Brad Whitman, and Pat Lucera. So thanks, guys. We really appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
And the other 4,994.
994. None of us can
That's
math.
awesome. We really appreciate it. That was
All right.
right math. I think that was right math.
Yeah, I think, well, it was right math for you. My number was incorrect.
Yeah.
Dennis, you had something you want to talk about?
I got something this week.
And
My
it was-
lovely wife went to this place that it's called River City Coffee Shop down on Main Street. It's this new little coffee shop, niche kind of T-shirts, and
Maybe
they
that's
have
why it's called River City Coffee Shop.
and they've got used albums in there too. And she goes, "Hey, they got a bunch of." She calls me the other day and she goes, "They got a bunch of Kiss albums down here." And I go, "Really?" I go, "What they got?" Well, they've got Love Gun, and they've got this, and they've got that, and they got this one called the Originals. And I went, "Yeah, please." So she got it for me, and it was $20, but they're actually in pretty good shape. There's no that little booklet that was in it was gone, but they do have the original liners in it, so it has all the original liners, so which is kind of cool. Records are in really good shape. he said it was pretty funny though. Kelly was talking to him, and he said, "Yeah," he goes, "Some dude come in here the other day, and I spent an hour and a half arguing with him because this guy was telling me how that Kiss was the worst band that was ever in the world." And he goes, "I spent like an hour arguing with this guy."
The guy that was selling them to him was arguing that Kiss was the worst band?
No, somebody came into the store and was like, "Oh, you got all these Kiss albums?
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, they're the worst band ever." And I'm going,
Yeah,
"Kelly,
okay.
I've done that since I was like since 5th grade. I've been doing this, so don't trust me. It happens everywhere." But anyway, I'm so happy to get this because this is one that I never bought when I was a kid because I already had those albums, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to have to rebuy them." And I wish I would have back then, but wouldn't have cost me $20.
Your set of originals is in way better shape than mine.
Yeah.
Mine looks like it's been through frisbee practice and skeet shooting practice.
It's got a little bit of the line of the album. You know, have sometimes that they're pressed.
It's supposed to be worn.
Well, and I've looked at online. Like I went on Amazon, and the cheapest one I could find was $50, and they go up to $100 and something for sealed copies and stuff. My question is, when did this come out? Was this after the story?
It was right after I believe, if you look on it, it's got a date on it. I think it was right after
This does not have a date. I looked at the other.
It is.
Get on the Google.
Oh, here it is.
Right after Kiss Alive 1, it came out, I believe.
I got to put my...
It's got to put on his elderly man glasses.
76.
Yeah. Oh, 76. Really? Was that late?
It says 76 Casablanca.
Oh, okay.
So I was just wondering. I figured it had to come out. I figured it had to come out after. I figured around Rock and Roll Over is when I thought it came out, but I was wrong. So
they released like 3 or 4 different things around that same time. So
exactly. So we used to get something every 3 months from Kiss. So
yeah. So I am going. My new music news this week is Thursday night when you guys are watching this show. Right. I will be with my wife.
June the 7th, by the way, 2018.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah. I will be with Lisa and Noah and his buddy Zach seeing Poison, Cheap Trick, and Tesla, I believe.
Cool.
I saw, well, you guys already know, but I saw Poison and Cheap Trick at Rocklahoma last week, and both were very good.
Good.
I was really surprised because Cheap Trick played more of their hits at Rocklahoma this time than they did last time. They played The Flame, too. I was really surprised.
They played The
I
Flame.
was really surprised.
Well, cool.
So awesome. Great. It's going to be an exciting week.
Going to be good. So
all right. Welcome our guest, the one and only Bobby Rock. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Good to be here.
Long time no see. Like about 2 weeks.
It was just 1 week. Yeah, man.
Yeah. That was fun. Did you have a good time?
It was great, man. Great to be in that atmosphere. I've always maintained, the Kiss folks, for the short period of time I played with Vinnie all those years ago for that 3-year span of time. But all the years since, I've always felt like part of the extended family. The Kiss fans have always been very cool to me. So it was really cool to, launch the new book in a friendly environment, let's say.
Would you be talking about this book?
Ah, indeed.
I was lucky enough to grab a copy that you autographed for me.
Cool.
So, there you go. Look at that.
Ah.
And it's the special edition. See that? Indie
right.
Kiss Expo special edition. And a couple of lanyards. So it's cool. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because I've been busy. We've been busy on the show, and I have a day job, so that's getting in the way. So that's a problem. A really big problem. So it's great. It was great seeing you there, man. I had seen you with Lita Ford opening for Night Ranger last year at the Murat in Indianapolis, an old theater, which is a great venue to see a show.
Yeah,
really cool place. But man, I didn't know who I was in her band, and I was there I really am a big Night Ranger fan, and when I looked up and I saw you come out, and I was like, that looks like Bobby Rock. So I was telling the guy that was with me, he didn't know who you were. He's kind of he's an 80s fan, but not a really, really, big fan. And she said, and on drums, Bobby Rock. I'm like, Bob, that was awesome. It was great. It was great to see you. And you pounded the shit out of those skins, man. I mean, good God.
Got to.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. How long have you been playing?
Wow. 44 years.
A day or two.
Yeah.
Cool. How did you get started? What prompted you to play drums? Did you play anything else?
I didn't play another instrument. I didn't come from a musical family. It basically went down in 2 steps. Step 1, at about 10 years of age, my sister's boyfriend brought over a copy of Alice Cooper Killer. And what you got there? He goes, oh, this is an Alice Cooper record. You know, of course I said, who's she? Being a stupid guy. He goes, she is this scary guy right here. And he opened up that gatefold where he's hanging by the noose. If you guys remember that, the calendar that came with that record, he's got blood all over his chest. It looks like he's dead, you know? Right. So that struck me. I saw that. I went, holy shit. I grabbed the record. I looked at it. I said that back cover shot of Killer where all the guys are there with all the long hair and the jewelry and all that. That was my first attraction to the madness. You know, I got to be part of this world somehow, but I don't know how just yet. Now, cut to a few months later, and that's when I had what I call the moment. And I believe that almost anybody who plays an instrument can, in many cases, tell you the moment they decided to play, you know, drums, guitar, whatever it was, they can take you back. My moment was at the end of our street where I grew up in Houston, Texas. There was some duplexes, and so a couple of drummers, you know, there are 2 families that each had a kid 15, 16 years old that played drums. So one day these 2 kids invited me to come in and watch them jam along with some records. And I know we were just talking about those consoles, those old school, like Magnum style. So that's what they had. So I go in the room there, and there's this drum kit set up, and this kid, Cole Newberry, who's about 3 years older, sits behind the drums, and they pull out a copy of Black Sabbath Volume 4. Okay? Pull the vinyl out, put it on the record player. Song 1, Side 1, Wheels of Confusion. And by the time the song kicks into Tony Iommi's initial riff and Cole starts bashing the drums, my life would forever be altered. I mean, it was like 4 in the afternoon. I mean, I remember everything about the room, the kid's bedroom, the color of the drums, like all that shit. I said, that's what I want to do. I'm going to be a drummer. And that was it. I had school band, drum lessons. That's when it all started.
That's awesome. Cool. That's a cool story. That's amazing. What kind of music were you into at that time? Were you into that kind of music at the time, or were you listening to just writing? So you had an older sister, you said.
Tony Orlando and Dawn.
No.
Oh man, I mean, the first record I actually bought was Alice Cooper's "School's Out." Then I got Black Sabbath, "Paranoid." Then my sister got a copy of Deep Purple, "Made in Japan" for her birthday or something. I promptly stole that. So it was like that was the vibe, you know. Those were the big bands for me, you know. Black Oak, Arkansas, I liked a lot. You know, but that I immediately went for the hard shit right out of the gate, you know.
Right. Which explains the beating the shit out of the skins.
So when did you get your first drum set? Well, I mean, how old were you when you first got your first kit?
Well, right. I mean, the moment that I saw my, you know, Cole Newberry play the drums like that, what had happened was my dad had an old set of Ludwigs up in the attic. He was
my gosh, you were already set up.
He was a hobbyist as a drummer. So that's right. As soon as I went home and had to convince my dad to pull the shit down from the attic and, you know, I'll bring him out to the drums so it won't be as noisy. And it was an immediate thing, man. You know, and it was kind of there was missing a few pieces, and I had to kind of borrow from people around the neighborhood. I needed somebody's hi hat. I needed, you know, and I pieced the kit together. That wound up being my first drum set. You know.
Wow. That sounds like my first drum set.
You remember?
My first drum set was boxes that I put around, and then I never actually got a real one, and still can't play anything. But still, that was what I did. I mean, it was kind of interesting. I mean, you know, my first band was Kiss. Was where I got interested. But I remember playing the drums, and then my sister would like play the role of Ace Frehley. We didn't have a Paul and Gene. I don't know why, but that's how we did it. It was kind of cool, and it was because you at least I could make noise, right?
Because they're expensive, and you can't afford
and I had different size boxes too, so they sounded different.
Right on. Cool. Making it work, man. Making it work.
Got to make it work. That was that's cool. That's cool.
So you want to talk a little bit about your book, what it's about, you know, what you're going for there?
Yeah, so The Boy Is Gonna Rock. The way it came about was on the 30th anniversary of my audition for the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. It was October 1, 2015. And, you know, what a lot of people might not know is I've kind of had a dual career on some level as both a drummer and a writer. Now, drumming has always been my main thing, but through the years, I've written other books, I've collaborated with other authors, I've ghostwritten, I've done these other things. Probably since the mid '90s when I really got interested in writing a lot of different kinds of things. Although I published my first book in '89, it was like a drum method book. But anyway, I've had a blog at that point for quite a while. So I just decided to take the experience of recalling, the circumstances behind the audition, and specifically what went down on the audition, because it was kind of a well-known story to certain folks, especially when it went down back then. So I just wrote about it, put it on the blog, and people just went apeshit over this thing, man. They were interested to sort of revisit that time frame. Of course, Vinnie had been out of the limelight for years. Nobody knew where he was. So there was, that era. I think those of us who were immersed in that era back then, sometimes have a longing for, aspects about the way things were back then, with regarding even just musicianship and playing and what the business was like and so forth. So all these things kind of lined up, and that's when I recognized that, wow, people are interested to hear about this. So I wound up a few months later doing a couple more entries about the recording of the first Invasion record, which was also somewhat of a famously arduous story. And again, more people talk, the reaction, the reposting, the comments, tell us more, tell us about that Alice Cooper tour, tell us about the second record, blah blah blah. And that's kind of like, at that point I knew, I really should probably just write a whole book about this thing, And so about a year ago, I said, I'm gonna focus the book on, the Vinnie Vincent Invasion saga, because looking back from that 30-year retrospective view, from a writer's perspective, it's like, man, this is some compelling shit, man. I mean, this, it was, functionally dysfunctional, the way the organization was run and all that. These are characters that you couldn't create, in a novel with any
Right.
real validity. A publisher would say there couldn't be a guy like that. No, you got to, be more realistic. And so I think that was to me, I just saw a compelling story. Musically speaking, look, man, that was a small slice of what I've done. If I've been doing this more than 30 years professionally, that represents about 1/10 of my career or less. I have fond memories of it, but I've moved on and done a bunch of other shit since then. But from the writer perspective, it was just a hotbed of stories and tales and, just shit I've never seen or heard about since, So
Well, you basically lived like a Lord of the Rings, you know what I'm saying, a story, and then you're
Right.
basically you don't have to write, you don't have to make anything up. You're just basically writing down what happened.
That's exactly
And
right.
just
That's
like-
exactly the process. Yep. So I kind of, bookended the story with, just like the story I told you guys about how I got interested in playing drums. So like the first chapter is all about just getting, how I got interested in music and all that. And then like chapters 2 through, let's say, 13 were all about the invasion, just in tremendous detail. Because what I always point out is, I have the unique distinction of having gone into rehab at a very young age. In most cases, a rock and roll guy will, carve a pretty decent career for himself, and then in later years, he's going to wind up in rehab. We've seen that 100 times. In my case, I started off in rehab and then carved out a pretty decent career for myself. So
Right.
You can remember.
So you can actually remember, yeah.
yeah. To do it in reverse means that I can actually remember shit. That's the thing. Memoirs that talk about how fucked up everybody got and the overdoses and this and that. I understand there's a public appeal for that kind of thing, but you got to wonder like how many fine details can a guy recall from like 1987 when they were getting fucked up every day or the drinking or whatever the case was. So, and I happen to have just a freakishly accurate memory. The ability to recall fine details. What it was like to be at the Joe Louis Arena on October 31st of 1986, opening up for Alice Cooper. It was the 4th show of the tour, walking down the corridor to the stage, what it smelled like in that place, the weed, the hot dogs, like, that arena smell, lighting, what happened when the lights
Back in
went.
the day arena, we don't get that anymore, but I miss those days too.
It's coming back, man. I'm telling you. Last show I went to, I was like, what the hell?
Which coincidentally enough was the Alice Cooper show that we went to.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So that was, so I really
And we
tried to, present a lot of detail about what it was like in the studio, what it was like on the road, so it's a memoir in the traditional sense that I'm focusing on a particular period of time, and really trying to document in great detail all that happened. And I don't really feel like, oh, I'm going to be the official Vinnie Vincent Invasion biographer or anything like that. But it kind of winds up, I think, being clearly the most detailed and what I feel is the most fair-minded and accurate portrayal of that band, of that cast of characters, and everything that went down. And I feel like I was in enough of a neutral position to be able to observe without a great deal of emotion and investment, so to speak, into just what happened. And so that's what I think did a pretty good job to capture. And then, of course, at the tail end of the book, the last couple of chapters, I reflect on all that happened immediately following the invasion, with Mark and Dana doing Slaughter and me winding up with the Nelson brothers and all of that. And we wind up coming to present day, Vinnie showing back up in Atlanta, me playing a show with Slaughter 2 months ago. I got photos of that shit in the book. So you get a really good, complete picture of the whole scene, I think.
And people want to hear that. I mean, people, there's a lot of autobiographies that are being made out, and like you said, they're made by people who lived it but don't remember it. So they've got ghostwriters, and they're trying to, like you said, if you got a book that's actually accurate and people know that's going to be accurate, people are hungry for that, because people our age, I'm 52, and we hunger for that, kind of our past the 80s and all that stuff like that, and to hear something like that or to read stuff about it, it's great.
Right,
it's awesome.
Right,
yeah, it was interesting. I was thumbing through the book earlier today, just kind of thumbing through, looking at some of the photos and stuff like that, and I read the part of the book where I think it was when the first tour ended and you guys were going to the show, and I think you had a show in Anaheim that night, and Dana was wanting to get paid before the show started. Right. And I'm reading that, and I'm like, because I really didn't realize when I purchased it that it really is. This is really, like you said, the Vinnie Vincent. I mean, that story, that invasion story. Right. And I'm like, well, this is. I mean, he's had a pretty good career, and there's a lot of this about, the invasion era, and I'm like, well, that's because that's what it is. But it took me like, but it was a cool story. It was very compelling, and you're right. I think reading other biographies or autobiographies, some people don't have all of the details. They have some of the details. And the interesting thing is when you read biographies from bands that all four members have put things out, the stories don't ever seem to be the same. About anything.
In that instance, there's 5 sides to every story.
We were all in a room, and we all have 4 different stories.
Yeah. Well, that's for sure, man. That's for sure.
Yeah. I can't. I'm gonna have to carve some time out and sit down and read this. I can't wait. This weekend, long weekend, so I might be able to get some time to knock that baby out.
I need to purchase that book. Like I said, I did not purchase it up there, but I'm definitely going to get it, because I do love books like that. I try to read a lot of the rock biographies or autobiographies that I can.
Right.
Real quick, when Vinnie was gone those years, did you have any contact with him or know anything about Vinnie at that point?
Nothing. I heard, word around the campfire like everybody else did. He was somewhere in the Nashville area. There were rumors, of course, about, how he may be showing up in public, gender-wise or not, this kind of stuff. The closest I ever got to knowing any, maybe a little more behind the curtain was, I think in 2011, the big NAMM show in Anaheim every year. He was, I guess, going to launch a signature guitar. So his wife was actually manning the booth at that time. So I showed up to NAMM. I didn't know anything about it, but people kept coming up to me, man, you got to go downstairs to where the so-and-so booth is. Vinnie's got this new guitar thing as well. So I went down there. It turns out that I had met her before, some years before on the road. I think she might have been from the Chicago area and caught us at a show or something. Anyway, she was very friendly. We had a chance to talk. And I got just a little bit of insight as to what Vinnie had been up to and what was going on. So, I gave her my phone number. I said, listen, I don't know where Vinnie's head is at with any of this stuff. I mean, I have no animosity. I have no hard feelings about anything. Sure. I'd like to just talk to the guy. Here's my number. If you feel like that he'd be receptive, if the timing's right or whatever, pass it along, And, I never heard from Vinnie. I don't know if she got it to him or not. I never really knew. But in a couple of conversations I had, I just had a little bit of insight to at least confirm that where they lived and all that. But I never spoke to Vinnie and never had any I didn't know really any more than most other people did.
I got you. So once you left Vinnie, then you said you went to you went playing for the Nelsons.
I wound up with the Nelsons. Yeah, it was about 6 months where, it was such an ugly breakup. And actually, the part you mentioned about the Anaheim thing and getting paid, that was before our last show ever, actually, on the end of the second tour. So that's what it come down to. There was a lot of like financial shit that had been going on, and a lot, we got a new manager, but it was really Vinnie's manager. So there was like all kinds of chaos going on. And that last tour was a, clusterfuck of epic proportions. And I detail it all just because I think the record should state exactly what all went down.
Sure.
And that's what brought the conversation up, man, we're way behind getting paid. There was all kinds of weird things with payroll going on. And Mark and Dana insisted if we go play that last show and do not get paid do not get caught up, that we're going to have trouble chasing that money down. And I was the naive one. No, they know they owe us. And sure enough, Mark and Dana were right. And we went through hell and high water to get at least some of the money that we were owed. But we didn't get paid everything we were owed. And that's kind of like how it all rode off into the sunset. So at the end of it all, I just, no issue with Mark and Dana. I love those guys. Mark had got his option picked up, so I knew there was going to be another record on Chrysalis, which of course wound up being the Slaughter record. But just at that time, after taking a couple weeks to think about it, I just decided to, venture off on my own and get into some other things. I did a drum video and a book. I did a bunch of sessions, did different records. I did the Bob Kulick record, Skull, I had some other things. And then about 6 months later, I just kind of fell into, Nelson land and wound up playing with the brothers for the next several years.
Right. I noticed whenever we were at the convention down there, you and Mark you had booths there right next door.
Right,
so I knew you guys were still close and still,
all through the years. Man, both those guys, Mark and Dana, always remained close with them through the years, man.
Awesome.
That's cool.
That's great.
It's funny you talk about Nelson. I didn't realize that until that is the other part in the book that I had kind of come across. But I was going to send these guys. I send these guys stuff every now and then that, I'm out mowing the grass. I got my headphones on and some weird shit comes on. So, and a couple weeks ago, I had just my Kiss playlist and it's playing like the worst, Kiss fan, but there's some bad
Elder,
shit. So
and I love that. So.
It wasn't just Elder. It played like Sonic Boom and Monster and some crazy
I
shit.
can agree with that. But
Elder. Yesterday, I was mowing and it's playing Love and Affection. And I'm out there literally people are slowing down as they're driving by with their windows down because I must have been screaming while I was at the top of my lungs. And I almost sent these guys just a picture of the song that was on the thing and go, I'm out here just killing it on this.
Right.
It'd be funny to see somebody. I have to have somebody just drive by when I'm mowing and like record because out there air drumming and you're
killing your neighbors is what you're doing.
I am killing neighbors. Keep the birds away. They're trying to do. That's a great record though. That was a really good record. Were you on the record as well?
Oh yeah. I was the first guy hired. They had their deal in place. John Klaudner was their A&R guy. Things were set, and we just gradually got the other guys, and rehearsals, pre-production, and wound up doing the record. And I talk about this pretty extensively in the book. It's hard to believe now, given how the record turned out and how the band was marketed, and it seems like an obvious thing. Like, well, of course it's going to be marketed that way, given it's like a pop rock thing and all that. But when I initially talked to them, it was a different. Even their demos were more pop oriented. Like the record turned out to be. So I go, this is good songwriting. The guys sing very well. I understand why they do what they do, given their father's background musically and the acoustic guitar thing and all of that. All good. They don't change a thing. But for me, man, I like to hit. And I had that part. I had the sort of the drummer mentality where I like to do long drum solos. I like, that whole kind of vibe. So I was questioning my place in the scheme of things there. And the initial concept by way of the brothers and their manager, when they first sat me down, they go, look, we want to do like a David Lee Roth type concept here, where obviously the brothers are fronting the band, but they got like 3 or 4 motherfuckers behind them that can really almost like a rock virtuoso type thing,
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm like, Now that sounds interesting to me, and they got this guy, Brett Garside from Australia, who is an absolute fucking monster. They got Paul Merkovich on keys, who would go on to do all kinds of shit. I think he's musical director for The Voice, musical director for the Emmys or the Grammys, one of the two. He's like one of these guys who is a phenomenal musician, can orchestrate and all that. And this was like the foundation of the band. So I'm like, cool, this is, I can get behind this, But as it turned out, as we got in the studio and started recording, as the label got involved, it wound up being more of a just straight ahead, pop rock record. There's glimpses of thing on the record, but live, if anybody ever saw the band live, we were headlining off of one record. So in order to fill the setup, the three of us, meaning me, the guitar player, and the keyboard player, Brett and Paul, got these extended solos. So it was kind of a weird mishmash because you had like the screaming young teenage girls out there, wetting themselves over the hits.
White haired,
all that
haired long guys.
and then you had the three virtuoso guys, stretching out on these solos. So anybody who saw the show live said, "Wow, I had no idea the band was this good."
Right.
Wow, I wasn't expecting this, etc. So it was kind of it was a double-edged sword for me, that gig. I love the brothers. I don't regret doing it, but I think coming from that Vinnie Vincent background and having more of a harder rock type following, if you will, and then kind of winding up in something that was perceived as more of a poppy, Sweet 16 magazine type of vibe, which is what it ultimately became on a certain level. It was a little incongruous for what I had, I guess, been doing prior to that,
Right.
Wow, cool.
Awesome.
So from there, go ahead. What was next?
No, yeah, so I was going same thing.
Next was Seattle.
Little grunge. You do a little grunge here, get a little flannel going.
I didn't get it then. I don't get it. I appreciate it for what it was.
I thank you.
Good songwriting is good songwriting, and for those Nirvana, those bands. I admire what the trip they did and all that, but it was just such a shift of polarity from what we were doing. That was it, man. It just and so when that went down, for me, I had kind of a natural transition into doing like a solo drumming type of thing, doing like these drum clinics, a lot of educational things. I wound up getting I had sponsorship with different companies, so I ended up for most of the 90s, like I was on the road. I made some of my own solo records. I had a kick-ass trio that I would tour with. I had an RV and a trailer and a small crew, and I sort of eked out a living all over North America, just hundreds of thousands of miles in this thing, really doing what I loved, what I always loved. Even before VVI, when I went to the Berklee College of Music, and I always had a fascination with that kind of, drummer type of thing. So I had a chance to really stretch out and get into that side of my career. And it's always a struggle when you play instrumental music and you're playing primarily for musicians, and it's a different market, a different thing, and it's a month to month existence, let's just put it that way. But that's kind of like where I wound up, and it wouldn't be until probably 2000 or 99, let's say, that I kind of started playing. I would do some shows here and there, I do some sessions here and there throughout the 90s, but really the next thing was probably Gary Hoey, the guitarist. I hooked up with him in 99 and played with him for like 5 years. Played with Slaughter again in the early 2000s. And then from that point, I got back into more doing the traditional hard rock thing, But post Nelson, man, it just bang, the pendulum swung completely the other way. And that was it, man. You had to kind of reinvent. You had to kind of, move on to the next adventure.
Cool. So you've got a little health thing going on too. I remember seeing you in Indy, and then when you stand next to you, you're built, man. You're not some skinny guy. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of weird. Drummers, I see drummers that are like, I can't believe these guys weigh this much being a drummer, because they just work their asses off every night. And then you see these really skinny guys, and you're just like built like a rock, dude. Which is very ironic, right? That being your last name. But so you have a whole health thing going on. I was looking at the website earlier. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think for me, again, having gone into rehab at such a young age, I think as I started my career and started touring and all that, there's really two things that happened. Number one, playing hard rock drums in the club circuit back in 83, 84, 85. It was 3, 4 sets a night, 5, 6 nights a week. I mean, it was very painstaking, very physically draining. And then I'd get like an extra long drum solo because that gave our vocalist a chance to sit back and sip some herbal tea backstage and recover, get his throat back in check while I'm out there while I'm out there wailing. So it was like I learned early on that, man, I got to do something to supplement the regimen here, man. So I started lifting weights, and I had there'd always been this big stigma about weightlifting that's going to make you bulky and tighten you up and affect your speed and everything. But then I saw a lot of heavyweight boxers that lifted weights, and they were like fast as shit and had a lot of power, and that was their movements and motions and so forth were similar to what I saw in rock drumming in terms of just the physical exertion. So started lifting weights then, and this is about 84 when I got into hitting the weights. And so that was really, I was drawn to it to help the drumming out and all that. And then I just kind of caught the bug. And it turned out that lifting weights and training and all that became a positive place to put my addictive personality, tendencies, type thing. Which I needed out there on the road. Everybody's getting fucked up and drinking, and that environment out there was a certain way. So I was able to sort of redirect those tendencies into training, and that's when I started. I do this thing. A lot of people, I'll post shit on Facebook. Even these days, I go for a run in the middle of the night. I'm lifting weights in the middle of the night, whatever. That's really when it started. I'd come back from the gig at 3 or 4 a.m., drag my weight equipment out of the gear truck, and right there at a fucking Motel 6 parking lot, lift weights. And it was a way it really helped the conditioning, and I just kind of got in the whole vibe of it, and that's been part of my lifestyle since. And then once I got into that, then a few years later, the nutritional stuff came on board, and I started learning a lot about, more plant-based nutrition, became vegetarian in 1990, vegan in 93. And it kind of all evolved from there to where now all these years later, after all the study and writing I've done about it, I've kind of put together my own methodology that combines, things like weightlifting, plant-based eating, and the mind-body connection with meditation and things like that, all for, where you have like a well-rounded approach to staying fit, and these are the tools that you really need, I think, if you want to thrive on the road these days. You don't get enough sleep a lot of times. You're traveling through climate changes and time zones and all of that, man. And I very rarely, if ever, everybody around me could be sick, and I usually skate away from it, and I attribute that to healthy living and antioxidants and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I'm sure it does make a big difference. I mean, we're not spring chickens anymore either, right? So, I think that, yeah, that would have a lot to do with it. So what's your pre-show, do you have a pre-show regimen then around that? Do you lift to get loose or anything like that before a show?
If it's long enough, like usually we'll usually do sound check. It depends when we do sound check. If we do it really early in the day, like 12 or 1, then I may catch some weights in the mid-afternoon. If we're going to do sound check later in the afternoon, then I may hit the weights earlier. Every day is different. It kind of depends on, what the next day's schedule is like, what time we have to be at the airport, all those kind of things. But I try not to lift weights, within several hours before the gig, so I may do that earlier in the day. However, I may go for a run mid-afternoon. I like running in the heat of the day, get that sweat going and all that. So I'll often run on show day as well. And then it depends on the hotel. If there's a cool gym at the hotel, I may make it a point to wait till after the show, go down there in the middle of the night and lift some weights. The kind of things I do more pre-show, especially before I leave the hotel, is I have like a simple 30-minute martial arts type regimen that I like to do. I can do it anywhere, any hotel room. This really helps get the blood circulating, gets me loosened up, stretched out. So that's one of the main physical types of preparation that I'll do before I go to the gig. Once I'm at the gig, that's when I start swinging the sticks a little bit more. Sometimes I'll practice during the day in the hotel room as well, but once I get to the gig an hour before, I'll swing the sticks, get dressed, put on the eyeliner and get pretty and and start hydrating then. I'm very conscious about the amount of water I'm drinking leading up to the show. You start getting all that, stay ahead of the curve with having enough hydration, of course. and that's it. And then the thing that we always do, and I've done this with the band since the Nelson Brothers, man, since the 90, 91, is we have something called Zenning that we do. It's like a little pre-show moment, and we get in a circle, and I'll say a few words about how we're all about to, step into a tank and go roaring down a hill to a vacant village of tents and trees, and we're going to crush the living shit out of everything we see. And there's like a little Zen moment pep talk, and then we take out maybe 15 to 20 seconds just to be still and quiet for a second. I know it may sound kind of weird, but there's just something about just being together quietly for those 10, 15, 20 seconds when everybody else is running around, when maybe you haven't even seen your bandmates all day, everybody's in maybe different rooms getting prepared, doing their different routines. Boom, this is a way we can all get together, kind of align with one another energetically, if you will. Yeah. And then by that point, we wait till we hear Balls to the Wall. That's the Lita Ford song that plays before every time we walk on stage, that old Accept song. Balls to the wall. Once we hear once we hear that, it's time to zen. So we get together, we have our little moment, and then boom, we hit the stage, and it's just it's a ritual. It's something that triggers the mind in such a way that gets you ready for optimal performance, and it's been somewhat of a tradition that I've had.
Well, it's like one of those things where before a show, you all have different ways of you doing things, and you're talking to different people, and everybody's coming at you at 100,000 different directions.
Right.
Like I said, that's your time to all collectively get together and say, we're going to go out and we're going to rock this, rock wherever you're at.
Right.
Like I said, just take a second just to get your shit focused and go. Because like you said, it is crazy. I play in a cover band, but I know how it is. You get, especially if you got, we're setting our own crap up and all this stuff. And at the end of you start your song but something's happening and you're up to the last minute, you're trying to get shit together.
Right.
And then you go play that first song. It's usually a fucking nightmare because you're just so scrambling from everything. You got to have your head clear when you go out there, especially when people have paid to come see you.
Right.
You got to be on your game. You got to be on the game. So awesome.
Right. That's why we only let Dennis play in bars where it's free, and they give people a lot to drink for the first song.
I tell you what, I could play.
It's kind of interesting because it's interesting to hear the story about what happens before the show because we never get to see that. And for years and years, I always thought that the band rode on the bus, everybody hung out, everybody got along. It was that you guys were together all the time. I used to think that. I don't think that anymore, but I used to think that. That's because you never knew. You never. That was before the internet and all that other kind of stuff. You never knew any of those stories. So for me, it's intriguing and cool as hell. And I told. We had a gentleman on the show it's a production. He does production for Styx right now, and he's done stuff for Kiss and some other folks. And I told him, I said, a dream that I have is to come to a show and watch from the blank stage, the conversion to the end of the show, just the whole thing. And I know there's a shit ton of time that's spent with people sitting around twiddling their thumbs, waiting for something to happen next. But just to see that whole thing go from start to finish, to me would be just intriguing. Now that may be a one and done thing because after it happens, you may go, this was not that great.
Well, Bill, I will make a deal with you.
I've told you this 100 times.
The next band that I stage manage for here in Evansville, I will hire you to come down and be one of my roadies.
I don't want to be a roadie. I just want to.
You can come to my gig and help me set up. You can start at my house. Help me drive my trailer to the gig, and we'll go from there.
You don't get it. I don't want to help you.
Even as a kid, when we were kids, we thought the bands lived in a house together, like the Monkees.
I know, man. I know.
It was like we thought Kiss. They all stayed in makeup all day long. They wore those boots, and they walked around, and they just come out of a bus, and boom, they play these shows, and then they're all like because they were superheroes to us as kids. Right. You know what I'm saying? But it's
you know what's funny on that tip. In the Lita Ford band. When the travel agent books our tickets, books the seat flights, all that, we don't even sit together on the plane, because some like windows, some like aisles, and listen, we all get along great. There are no issues. We have a great chemistry with our, there's 6 of us that travel. There's, the 4 band folks, Lita, Marty O'Brien on bass, Patrick Kennison on guitar, myself, and then we have George Marshall, tour manager. have Jared Wozniak as our right-hand man who handles lead his guitars and fills in all the blanks. So, we have a great team. Everybody gets along perfect. But it's like, I guess because we're going to, by default, spend a bunch of time together, it's almost like, this is kind of some quiet time to watch a movie or read a book or take a nap or whatever you want to do without the obligation, quote unquote, of conversing with your seatmate, type thing. So it's just people are like, what? You guys don't sit together? I thought, again, you're all going to, hang together.
The Partridge Family. Don't you travel in a bus?
Right. What if you're like some bands, you're not even going to be in the same damn plane?
The same bus. You take 4 separate buses.
And that's the other extreme, different hotels. And we hear a lot of crazy stories about that, and you know what, man, I guess, they bands do what they got to do to be able to show up and give their best rendition of their trip every night,
Right. How often does Lita play? I mean, how many gigs you guys do a year with Lita?
It really fluctuates. We if we do 80 to 100, that's a good year for us.
That's good though. That's good.
And because especially these days when it's just the way the industry is, the way the market has changed, the way the business is run now. We typically do like weekend stuff, so it's almost like we're home half a week.
Kind of a fly-in situation.
Yeah, exactly. Then gone half a week on average. Some weekends are off. It kind of depends. And occasionally we'll jump on a bus. I think a year or two ago we toured with that band Hellstorm. So those were 2 separate 1 month tours where we got on a bus and cruised around. That's always the preference, by the way. If you can get around by bus versus flying, life is way easier on the road because you're not having to hustle to the airport, catch early flights, travel on show days and all that. I mean, you just go to your bunk at the end of the night when you get on the bus and you wake up in the new town and start your day. It's fucking killer. But those kind of situations where you're playing on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and those are harder to come by these days. So most of what we do are the primo, weekend shows, the festivals, this kind of stuff.
Let me ask a question too. You mentioned how the industry has changed. For somebody new and upcoming, a younger band that's coming up, I mean, you've been on the road and you've done this for enough time that you have some experience. What do guys do now? I mean, since it's changed so much, what is your little bit of the knowledge that you're going to give out to a young band? What do they do?
That's a hell of a question, man, because if I'm just being completely transparent, I'm not even sure anymore, man. And I mean, for years, from the beginning of rock and roll, whenever you want to call that, pre-Elvis, if you will, on through, I guess the advent of digital media in the late 90s, Napster and all that shit, maybe,
I'd say beginning of the 90s or so, yeah.
Right. So, the model was pretty clear, get a fucking record deal. That was the game, because once you had the record deal, there was some machinery, there was an assembly line process that we all would do. You get a record deal, you find a producer, you pick the songs, you go in the studio, you pick the first single, you pick the first video, you get money together for tour support, because usually the label would have to supplement your touring efforts because it would cost you more to tour than what you were earning from opening up for somebody, et cetera, et cetera. You had a publicist, you had magazine coverage was like the internet has kind of replaced all of that. But if you guys remember, it's all about getting in the magazines, MTV. Sure. You had somebody working radio. If you were a radio friendly band, you'd go on the road, record store signings, radio station. There was a whole thing. Right. And you try to, hit the buffet, so to speak, of as many of those things as you could. And that was the aspiration. And once you got a record deal, depending on what it was, you knew there's going to be some money there. You knew if the record did well, there's going to be some more money. There's going to be a merchandise advance. And there were things to really count on with that elusive record deal, And so that was always the aspiration. And if you went the indie route, it was you could do well, but that was indie meaning the DIY thing, Right. Back then, I guess indie meant an independent label. But so, now there, and not to sound discouraging, but it's just that, there really is no definitive model that a young band can aspire to. I mean, I suppose there are record deals to be had. There are still guys getting signed and with some decent advances. I mean, that's part of the industry now. But it's almost like a presumption that if you're going to have a band, that you're going to have to do the DIY thing out of the gate for no other reason than to get the interest of the major labels. Back then, like I remember hearing about Winger getting a deal just on the strength, I believe, of a 3-song demo and an 8x10 kind of thing. Vinnie Vincent got his deal off of a 3-song demo that George Sewitt, his manager, took into Chrysalis Records. Bang, there's a deal. A fucking 6 or 8 album to whatever, a big deal. Essentially, of course, Vinnie had some history and all that, needless to say, but this, bands could get signed off of an 8x10 and a decent demo. Now the irony is it's almost like in many cases you have to build up enough of so much of a following where you're essentially taking the guesswork out of it for the label. Where the label goes, wow, we see some viability here. They have 100,000 followers on Facebook. They start adding up all the metrics. They're doing this kind of a draw. They're drawing 400 people consistently at this 3-state region. Okay, I guess it's safe for us to put our money on the table. Of course, the irony is if you get that far, what's a label going to do that you're not doing for yourself?
Already doing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's but anyway, I guess I will say this. I will say this little tidbit for bands that are starting out, because one of the things that we hear a lot about is, hey, can we, we want to open up for Lita Ford. Can you, get us on the bill or whatever, And of course, us band guys, we're not really, dealing with that part of the show that the agent and so forth puts it together. But the thing that, the mentality of many local bands, and I get this because I was there as well, is, if we could only open up for Lita Ford and play for all those people. I mean, sure, we understand what's to your benefit, to come on stage and be exposed to all those people. But what I tell young bands is, ask not what the big time headlining band can do for you, but what you can do for the big time headlining band. Meaning that if you have a good draw in a particular city, if you worked it up and you know that you can draw, 150 people, 200, whatever the number is, consistently through your own fan base, now what you're able to do is go to a promoter and say, okay, let us be direct support for someone like Lita Ford. We'll guarantee X amount of tickets. Now Lita Ford's agent is listening, because now they get a chance to put Lita Ford in maybe the venue that's a little bit bigger than what she would normally play, because there's openers that are helping to support the bill. Now everybody is interested in having this particular opener come on board because they know this band's going to help with the draw some, instead of a lot of newer local bands they're going to have their parents and a few friends showing up and this kind of thing, but it isn't going to significantly affect the draw. So that's just one example, but this is the way you have to think. It's almost like as a young band, you have to split your brain in half. And when you're at rehearsal and you're thinking about music, you want to be your creative self and all that, that's fine. But as soon as you start thinking about doing it professionally, going out and earning a living, doing shows, marketing your quote unquote brand and all that kind of shit, you got to use another part of your brain. You got to think about, you got to think about it like a business, because that's exactly what it is. So anytime you're having a business interaction with somebody, it's like a good business. What can I do for them? How is my involvement here going to be appealing to these folks? And that's the mentality that we have to have, instead of, how much can I benefit from finding a way to open up for the bigger band, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's pretty. That's really cool.
It's good advice, actually.
I think that whenever I saw you guys in Indy, I think there was an opening band that was a local band.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, did you guys have some opening bands on that tour that were locals? Do you remember?
That was. I think that was probably a one-off. We played with Night Rangers from time to time.
Okay. That was like the end of their tour, or there was a one-off. That was a one-off show. That was, for them, I think even it was something. They just came back out and did a weekend tour or couple of weekend dates or something. They made a comment about that.
Right. And the other, I hate to say this, but just again, full transparency here. Like a lot of times, like the opening bands, we don't get a chance to even hear them because that's either we're not at the venue yet, or we're getting to the venue and doing what I talked about, the warm up thing, or we're backstage doing our thing. So we seldom have a chance to even listen to the opening bands. And that was kind of a rude awakening that I had once I got to that headlining level, because anytime back in the old days when I was being a cover band or a club band opening up for a big band, it's like, oh wow, cool, we're opening up for so and so. They're gonna be able to hear our band, as if all the band guys are gonna be crowded around the side of the stage to watch another opening act. And not to sound jaded, but it's just you're getting ready to do your show at that point. So it's we very seldom have a chance to even hear a lot of the local bands who open for us.
So getting back to real quick, just one quick question about the way the music industry now is. Do you think there's still people that are going out, record A&R guys that are going back to a band and saying, "Hey, just heard your band. I love you. Here's my card." I don't think that happens anymore.
I mean,
I don't think it happens.
It happens in I'll tell you where it happens. It happens in made for TV movies about local bands who get record deals.
Seriously, I don't. The days of the 70s and 80s when that shit happened, I think that's gone. They'll see you on YouTube, and maybe if you got 1 million views on your YouTube video, they might say, "Hey, we need to check these guys out" or something. You know what I'm saying?
But then the deals are often, like co-op type deals where, okay, you guys deliver the masters,
right?
And we'll take care of the promotion and the packaging. So they're, basically, mitigating their risk by oh wow, they're going to bring us, they're going to spend $10K or whatever it is to do a great sounding record in a big drum room and mixing and all that, and they're going to hand us these masters, and then we're going to agree to spend money on promotion. And of course, those deals are very subjective. You got to be careful because what exactly are they going to do? What looks good on paper and what are they actually doing, et cetera. But this is, for a label to step forward and say, we're going to pay for you to produce the record.
The days of a label coddling a band is over. It is over. It is completely over.
It does happen. To be clear, though, to be fair, it does happen. There are bands out there that are doing it. There's some newer bands that have those deals. There are the Taylor Swifts of the world. It goes down. I don't want to say that it's non-existent. I'm just saying
not
that
as much as it used to be.
Not nearly as prevalent. That it's not even a reliable model, I think, to aspire towards. I think, again, the main advice I guess I would give a band is just, proceed as if there's no one coming to rescue you. Proceed as if there is not going to be a deal, And ironically, as I mentioned, the further you can get on your own, the more appeal you actually will have to a label. But you have to, before you would, it was all about the deal. And if you couldn't get a deal, then the band would eventually break up because what else was there, So now you have to proceed as if it's not going to happen, I guess,
But with the internet now, you can self-promote yourself to death.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. You can get a website and you can do YouTube. And, like I say, hopefully your songs catchy enough or whatever your stick is going to be catchy enough.
Right.
But it is a different animal, and that's why I was asking you because, the times have changed from the older ones like us.
Yeah.
And
is there any new music, Bobby, that you're listening to? Are there any new bands? You mentioned that a little bit. Do you have time, or do you spend time listening to anything?
I have Spotify. Is what I have.
Love Spotify.
and so what I do, just to sort of keep up with what's going on out there. I'll check out some different things. I'll hear about a new record. I'll listen to it. I try to and I'm the first to acknowledge that this way of experiencing music is not like the best way, the desirable way. Because I again, I still remember like you guys, man, going to the record store, picking out 1 or 2 albums, bringing them home, pulling the vinyl out of the thing, putting it on the turntable, listening to the whole motherfucker, side 1, side 2, top to bottom, while you examine every inch, the cover, the liner notes, all of that.
You knew everybody was in the band. You knew the producer. You knew the director.
Yes.
You knew who the guy drove the bus. You know who everybody at that point.
That's exactly right.
I always wanted to know who Steve Coronel was.
All right. What is that? You're just ringing a bell.
He wrote with he was in Wicked Lester with Gene and Paul.
Early on.
He co-wrote She.
He's
I'm thinking there were a couple of Kiss songs he co-wrote.
Right. You'd see a name in the co-writer credits who wasn't in the band. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, but to me, and again, man, I really, I don't want to be that guy. I don't feel like I'm that guy who is stuck in the past. And in fact, that my main trepidation about doing this book is, and having a book primarily about the Vinnie Vincent invasion, I just felt like it was just such an excursion into a past thing, an immersion into that nostalgic experience, that I felt like, that's not really me, man. I'm in the here and now. I'm moving forward. There's new shit I'm working on. But, but anyway, at the same time, I got to tell you, when your ear is just, when you grow up in an era where where you're used to like musicians playing instruments, you know what I mean? You're hearing the drummer. This is a drummer in the studio playing a complete start to finish performance. Maybe there's some punch-ins or edits here or there, but you can hear what's going on. You listen to a Zeppelin record, and you hear Bonham with that big groove, but, pushing and pulling a little bit here and there because it's natural. You listen to those Black Sabbath records, you get the sense that if they're not all jamming in a room together, it sounds like they are on some of those records. So you get used to hearing that kind of thing and just the sound of musicians playing music together. Now, that's something that I don't know that you ever necessarily, quote unquote, outgrow. But my issue, quote unquote, and it's not really an issue because I don't have that much interest invested in it, but so much of the new music, I mean, most of just music that you hear anywhere, anytime, I'll listen to it. Like I'm at the gym. Like at the gym is a perfect example. Like at the gym, they'll play different music, loop different things, whatever the modern thing is. And most often when I listen to it, I go, there's not one motherfucker actually playing live on that record right now. Like everything's sequenced, programmed. There may be a singer or a rap guy doing the thing, but who knows how that's just pieced together. Or if it is like a newer rock band and they're all playing, the way a lot of that music hits my ears is just a little harsh, man. Because everything, you guys probably know the technology. They move
compressed.
shit grid.
Yeah.
They compress the fuck out of it, and then it's all moved on the grid. So if the drummer is moving around a little bit, they look at the screen and go, "Oh, wait a minute, let's snap him back to." So they're essentially taking what a guy might have actually performed, but then aligning it with the metronomically accurate or perfect grid type thing. Right. So it kind of has a machine-like thing about
it. That's the whole point. It sounds too perfect. There's no natural sound about drumming. Drumming.
Right. That's called
music is.
That's called quantizing, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, you quantize the shit. You put it on the
music,
grid.
Especially, that's why I love live music because people make mistakes, and it's great. You know what? I want to hear a mistake because that makes me feel like they're playing it.
Right. But even with other instruments, like even when you listen to an AC/DC record, Back in Black or Highway to Hell, and you got both those guys in stereo, and you're listening to the guitar parts. Right. They're not like quantized in such a way where they're perfectly in sync and everything. That's
what makes it cool.
That's the thing. You just as it's playing, and then they'll take the drum sounds and they'll do what they call, they'll do sound replacement. So they'll take the guy's snare drum part and replace it with something that sounds more, electronic or artificial or some kind of trigger thing or whatever. And listen, technically speaking, when you hear it, I agree, the shit sonically is incredible, man. The spectrum it covers and the perfection of it. So I don't want to sound critical of what they're doing and imply that they shouldn't make records that way. I'm just saying that you're asking me if I listen to a lot of the newer music. I'm saying when I listen to the shit, the way it hits my ears just is harsh, man. Like that's why when you listen to some of the older music that was done on tape, or you listen to vinyl or whatever like that, there's just a warmth. I can imagine guys actually playing their fucking instruments here, man, and I still dig that, man. And that's why with Lita Ford, we're kind of old school in that way, man. The band is built around 4 people actually playing, singing, in real time, you know what I mean? That whole kind of vibe. So if that makes me old school, then so be it.
I understand it. It'd be like a guy going, "Get off my lawn, you kids."
Right.
But I do understand that because, like I said, some of the stuff here is so processed anymore that it's just not enjoyable to listen to.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Is it all right, Bobby?
So,
I mean,
hold on. I got
you have another question?
I have one more question.
All right. You haven't spoken all
surprise!
Night. You've been asleep over there.
I'm the quiet one here, Bobby. Are you working on any new material?
I am. On the Lita Ford front, there is a new record in the works right now. There's Lita has some killer songs. We've fucked around a little bit here and there with them at soundcheck and whatnot. We've heard some of the early demos of them. So that's and she actually is looking at some different more traditional record label things because she has the name and the following to actually get a real deal. So although admittedly we all understand, man, that most people who go to a Lita Ford show are going to be most interested in the big songs, the big hits from back in the day and all that, which is cool, which is the way it is and all that. But her fan base has been really receptive to new stuff. We always have newer music in the set as well. So that will be the one thing that we'll look forward to here a little later this year. And then for me, I just, the brain is always working, man. I have a very specialized drum kit. In fact, there's a photo in the book there. If you look on, you got that book handy, right? So if you look on page, hold on, I'll find it for you real quick here. If you look on page 275.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was really cool.
That big drum
set. See that?
That's the one. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's your smaller set, though, right?
Oh,
that's a typewriter. That's my jazz brunch set. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
I call that my alpha kit. I call it alphabet drumming. So that's what goes on in the lab. So I don't want to play this this is a big secret and you'll find out later. The truth is a lot of shit is still in development. So when I go to the practice, that shot was taken in my practice room. This is the type of shit that I work on. Different rhythms and grooves and things that kind of push the envelope and are really creative. And that particular idea, what I call alphabet drumming, kind of, in fact, I didn't even realize it till after the fact, but I guess it's kind of obvious now, but it kind of combines, being a drummer and being a writer simultaneously, because the thought was, what would certain words sound like rhythmically if you could play them on the drum? Almost like,
wow.
Instead of typing, I call it driping,
Driping.
So
That's awesome.
Words, certain words have certain rhythmic implications to them. Like, for example, the word motherfucker happens to be very rhythmic. It's 12 words. It's 4 groups of triplets. Zegada, digada, 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 and the shit nothing else in the world.
Man, too bad George Carlin still wasn't alive. He would use this in a comedy.
Oh, right.
You know what? And it's actually it's a good drum beat too. Motherfucker.
Oh yeah. So
that's awesome.
The next show you'll have to go, hey, just want to let you know. That's awesome.
That's cool. That is so cool.
All right, man. So thanks a lot for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. This has been great. It's awesome. We're very blessed to be able to spend some time with you guys. So it's cool. So we want to make sure we get some time to promote your book. Where can you find this? Where can you buy this at?
Cool. Probably the best place is either on Amazon or just BobbyRockStore.com. So the Kindle version should be up sometime. Well, actually, by the time this airs, it should be happening. So Amazon, I love Amazon. I buy a bunch of shit. That's cool. However, if you want the book autographed, everything that comes out of BobbyRockStore.com is autographed. And if you go there, you can get the book either by itself or the book with some of my solo CDs or the book with the photo or the book with other special bundles kind of thing. So
cool. These too? Will they get some of these?
Oh yeah, those are by the time this airs, we should have some of those available as well. Those laminates, we had those kind of as a special thing for the book launch, but everybody loved them so much we have some extra stock we're gonna offer at the store now. So
cool. All right, man. Thank you very much.
Cool guy.
Hang around a second. Bobby. It was great having you on the show.
Hang around.
Enjoyed it, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. We did a little thing at the expo too. We sat down.
I remember that.
For just a few minutes, and so that's hasn't come out yet. I don't think, Alan, has it? We haven't posted that one yet.
We had like 16 of those things.
We had a lot of content, which is
we
great.
only been releasing a couple.
We had like 16 interviews. I've got like 3 out.
A lot of work. And there's only one guy doing it.
Well, it's not necessarily this is a lot of work, but you don't want to throw so much stuff out there that it just turns your viewers off.
Do a couple a day or a couple of weeks.
We're holding yours, Bobby. Yours is going to be the last one we put out.
All right.
All
right, Alan, you want to take us out of here?
Hang on a minute, Bobby. I'm going to take us out of here. We want to talk to you after we're done here real quick.
Cool.
So, folks, visit us on agesofrock.com. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, all that fun stuff. Till next week, peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, Peace out, folks.